Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're having a good day today. Um, so there was actually a video that I wanted to show, and I was going to do this at the very beginning, but I've decided I'm going to wait. I'm not going to show that yet. It's actually a pretty funny video. I couldn't stop laughing, but I'm going to show that later. First, what I want to do, as always, is let's read our daily promise. Today it says, "The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance." 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. Reflection. Though we yearn greatly for the return of our King, there are still souls to be won. We can take heart in the love of our Father that all of Christ's sheep will be gathered before that final trump. None of our yet saved brothers will perish, and this is the purpose for which Christ delays his coming. So yeah, he's long suffering, and he's just waiting for the people who are going to accept him as their Lord and Savior to do so. And he just patiently waits, which is good for us because we have more time. Um, but also, it can be a little disheartening because then we're stuck here in this clown world that we're now living in. But that's what happens. But let me, if you have listened to my series that I was doing on Fridays about Bible prophecy, this scripture will be very familiar because we read it many, many times, multiple times in the episodes, and there was, I think there was 18 episodes of that, and I want to say it might have been 16. I'm not sure, but we read this verse a lot, so it sticks out. Um, but speaking of long suffering and us maybe as Christians wanting to get out of here, the preacher that I like to listen to a lot, Dr. Phil Kidd, I listened to his sermon yesterday, which he preached this past Sunday, and it was called, oh, it was about depression. Basically, um, it, I shared it on my Facebook, so if you're on the Facebook page, you can get that. But basically, he was just talking about the fact that depression doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going wrong in your life. That's not why people are depressed. There are people who everything is going perfectly right in their life. They have jobs, they have money, they have a nice home, their family is healthy, they're not sick, nobody's been hurt, nobody's died. There's nothing that from the outside looking in you would think their life looks like it's pretty decent, but yet they're still depressed because depression has nothing to do with that. And he just talked about different things of why depression sets in. And some of those, one of those reasons is when you see your country falling apart. If you really truly love your country and you want what's best for your country, and you see the route that it is taken recently, it can get you depressed. Um, and then if like the church that you go to, if you see them making some wrong decisions and taking wrong turns down the road, and it's not the church that you once knew it to be, that can be depressing. That can put you into a depression because of your love of your country, the love of your church, and it's just changing, and you don't know what to do. And that's something I have talked about, that watching what's happening to our country, it can depress you. That's why a lot of people don't like to get into, they don't like to look at the news and watch what's going on. They don't want to know. They don't want to get into the conversations because they get depressed, because they feel hopeless. But if you if you know at the end of the day that you're saved, you know where you're going. Um, I don't feel like I'm not saying that you can't still get depressed. I'm saying I don't feel like what's going on and watching news would necessarily throw you into a depression if you're a Christian. Um, unless you're just very easily um, influenced by that stuff. Look, I do this now all, 5 days a week. I'm looking into all of this stuff and looking for stuff to talk about. And while it can get you down, it does get me down. I do get depressed, but not I don't get into this mode of depression where I just feel like there's no way out. But it is depressing. It is sad. It's frustrating, but there is always hope. And that is the fact that Jesus is long suffering and he's waiting for people to repent. I think that all circled back around. I hope that made sense. It did in my head, and then getting it out, I struggled a bit. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is I actually just saw a video on YouTube by Mr. Reagan, and I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. The reason it's ridiculous is because there's a way that you can fix this if you feel it's a problem. You can fix it, like yourself. Okay, let me just tell you what it is. So, Mastercard has come up with the transgender credit card. Okay, um, so it allows transgender and non-binary people to use their chosen name on their cards rather than their legal name given to them at birth. And the reason why I say this is stupid is because you can go down and legally change your birth name to your chosen name anytime you want. And that name will go on everything. That'll be your new legal name. You know how, like, when you get married and your last name gets changed? You can do that anytime you want, legally. You just got to pay for it. So, in a nutshell, members of the LGBTQIA plus transgender community, whatever. I hate God. Okay. The alphabet community face challenges nearly every day that straight, cisgender people often don't encounter. I'm sorry. First of all, that's not some kind of extraordinary challenge that you have. Oh, you poor dear. You want to change your name and you're afraid people are going to harass you because you're a woman going by a guy's name. Actually, do you know that parents actually do give their daughters boy names and sometimes their boys girl names, like on purpose? So how are they to know that that's a transgender name? Because some parents are dumb enough to give their children names that you wouldn't give a boy or a girl typically. Anyway, and I'm sorry, but it's not a challenge, okay? That's the route you chose. That's the life you chose. Suck it up. If you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't have chose that life. For example, when the name on your credit card does not match your chosen name, it can be a real pain. It can be point, a real pain point, and a reminder that the battle for equal rights still has a way to go. Right, you have equal rights under the law, and that's all that you get. You don't get anything extra because you chose to live a lifestyle that's abnormal. MasterCard recognized these challenges and established its True Name program, which allows transgender and non binary people to use their chosen name rather than their legal birth name on their cards. Is that even legal necessarily? I guess I guess the card is actually registered in their legal name It's just the name on the front. But what if they ask for your ID and the name on your ID doesn't match the name on the card? I know a lot of places you can get by with that and you can swipe it yourself, but there are still some places that will ask for identification. And if those don't match, what are you going to do? The feedback to this initiative has been overwhelmingly positive, and MasterCard is advocating for TrueName to become an industry standard. In recent years, civil rights conversations have often focused on members of the alphabet community. While progress has been made, there is still plenty of work to be done. The transgender community, in particular, continues to fight not only against violence and discrimination, but for everyday rights that many people take for granted. Trans and non binary people often deal with challenges cisgender people never even have to think about, like having their name on their credit cards. Talk about first world problems. Making up so many problems because your life is too easy. Many transgender and non binary individuals choose to go by a different name than they were given at birth, names that truly represent their identities and who they are. So go change it. Go legally change it. But see, this is why they don't. Because they want the problem. They want this issue. They want to act like this is a big deal and they struggle and it's such a challenge. If they went and legally changed their name, they wouldn't have anything to deal with. They wouldn't have any so-called oppression or challenges. With identity theft and other security concerns ongoing in the fintech world, that preference is often overlooked, and trans and non binary people have been forced to use their legal name on credit cards when they no longer identify with that name. Too stinking bad. It's a credit card, it has to be linked to your legal name. Go change your name. This is, I don't think it's very much to go down and change your name. It should be pretty stinking affordable. Um, so on the low range, $150 up to 436, I guess depending on the state. But I mean, because you got to remember, this is like a bunch of documents. But then there's totallegal.com, or you can do it for $29.95 online. So we got to remember they're changing a whole bunch of documents for you. So of course it's going to cost some money. Mastercard has developed the True Name initiative to address these challenges. For many in the alphabet community, the name on their credit card, debit, or prepaid card does not reflect their true identity. That's why we're working with partners to bring products to market that will allow for chosen names to appear on the front of cards, helping ease a major pain point for the transgender and non binary communities. We recently spoke with Cheryl Gurin, EVP of Marketing and Communications for MasterCard, to learn about True Name and the inspiration behind it. Excuse me. Transgender people are our neighbors, family and friends, doctors and lawyers, teachers, mechanics, and customer service reps. Do you know, I don't think I even know one transgender person at all, not even through an acquaintance. So, how many really are there that there's such this war about they deserve this, they deserve that, that there's not even that many that I don't know a single one? It's a pretty small minority group. Okay. Um, we can learn so much from listening to the trans people in our lives about what it means to truly know yourself, to persevere even when the odds are against you, to risk everything and challenge the status quo. For many in the transgender non binary communities, paying with a card can be an everyday challenge when the name on their card doesn't match their true identity. A quick errand to the grocery store can be traumatizing for someone who feels misrepresented by the card in their wallet. If you're traumatized by that, you need to get some mental help. Already, you need mental help because transgenderism is a mental disorder. However, if it's even more impacted by the fact that your name doesn't match the name that you want it to be, You seriously do need some intervention. You clearly have something wrong in your brain, chemically or otherwise, but there's something off. Go get some help. I promise you, it'll be much better. According to research by the National Center for Transgender Equality, nearly one-third of individuals who have used an ID with a name or gender that did not match their presentation reported negative experiences, including being harassed, attacked, or denied services, she explained. That's why we're working with partners to bring products to market that will allow for chosen names to appear on the front of cards, helping ease a major pain point for the transgender and non binary communities. To address this, in June 2019, Matercard launched the True Name feature to enable cardholders to use their chosen name on their cards without the requirement of a legal name change. Shortly after the launch, BMO Harris Bank became the first issuer to implement the True Name feature through an initial rollout on the bank's personal debit MasterCard cards and ATM cards in December 2019. And after seeing the positive feedback of the initiative firsthand, BMO expanded the True Name with a full launch, offering across its suite of consumer credit cards as well as small business debit and credit cards in June 2020. In October 2020, Citi became the latest partner to offer the True Name features across the U.S., giving customers the ability to use their self identified chosen first name on eligible branded credit cards and across customer service channels, including phone, online, and mobile access points. Personal and financial information is understandably sensitive to both consumers and businesses. Featuring a person's name on their credit card was established as a security feature itself. Guerin discussed how MasterCard approaches this delicate balance between security and inclusion. MasterCard is working with our issuing banks to make them aware of the need for the True Name feature and are calling on the industry to apply the True Name feature to ensure a way for people's financial products to reflect their true identity. MasterCard actually does not have a rule that specifies that the cardholder name must be the cardholder's legal name. The name on the card is at the discretion of the card issuers. Issuing banks can make the True Name feature available to their customers very easily. All that is needed is a question that asks consumers what name they would like to appear on the card as part of the application process. There is nothing in MasterCard network rules that requires validation of the cardholder name on the card. MasterCard also does not require merchants to validate their cardholder name to accept a credit card, but some businesses uh, require that, like the business itself. But the card may not require it, but the business may require you to identify that that's actually your card. With the increase of contactless payments, the instances where a consumer hands over a card to a merchant are reducing. However, if a merchant does insist on matching the name on the card with a government issued ID, a recommendation is that the cardholder ask the merchant to call their acquirer. Nope, nope, I wouldn't do it. I'd tell them, no, just produce an ID. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to do all the work because you can't handle your name not matching the name you want it to be. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. MasterCard continues to ensure that card issuers like BMO Harris Bank and Citi see the value and importance of offering the True Name feature to its cardholders. With these issuers on board, the True Name feature by MasterCard lets consumers display their chosen name because that's who they truly are. Well, that's not, but okay. Since introducing the True Name feature, we received incredible feedback from our partners and allies within the transgender and non binary communities on how the capability has eased a major pain point in their lives. By working with BMO Harrison City, we are thrilled that we have been able to extend the reach and impact of the True Name initiative and provide consumers the opportunity to use their chosen name. Since the City True Name launch, City has seen more than 5,100 people update their name and over 110,000 customers visit their website where they can find more information about the offering, according to Guerin. And I can guarantee you that some of these people are not going because they're transgender and they want to change their name to reflect the name they chose. Some of these people are doing this to be funny. I guarantee you that there's some people like, oh my gosh, I can put any name I want. Okay, and I'm going to put any name that I want. And they're having a big old laugh about it. To be supportive allies, we must carry that ethos and speak up when we witness injustice. We must stand up for decency and equity, and that is our commitment as a brand to not only stand against inequity, but to be an agent for change. Now, let me remind you again: be careful of the use of the word equity, because when they use equity, they do not mean equality. I've talked about the differences between equity and equality before, but just a quick summary of what that is. Equality is everybody has the same exact opportunities to make a good life and future for themselves. However, everybody ends up at a different finishing point because of life choices that are made or circumstances that come along. Equity is everybody, no matter where they come from, all ends up at the same end result. Everybody gets the same. You get in equity, you are given something that you did not earn, nor do you deserve. Equality, you are given something that you worked hard for and you earned for yourself. Those are the differences. Equity is, you can't have equality and equity. You can only have one or the other. And equity is not a fair way to run things. Garen said she considers herself fortunate to work for an inclusive company that welcomes all employees with policies and values that celebrate diverse backgrounds and experiences. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest. Was that the end of it? Okay. Mastercard recognizes that acceptance and inclusivity are fundamental consumer rights and is committed to continuing working with its partners to ensure consumers everywhere can represent themselves on their cards as their true selves and is in continued conversations with card issuers, large and small. That's not a fundamental right to be included. That's not a fundamental right. Companies don't have to necessarily include you. The company is continuing its work with issuing banks to make them aware of this need, and it is calling on the industry to apply the true name feature to ensure a way for people's financial products to reflect their true identity. This is so stupid. Let me show you the commercial that went along with this. I just want to skip ahead
for something without being
to
paying for something without being judged, questioned, disrespected, humiliated, harassed, even assaulted, simply because the name on your card doesn't match how you identify.
I'm not sure I've ever heard of
This
that
is about
happening.
more than just keeping a card safe. It's about keeping us safe. True name.
Okay, so basically what you were seeing there is
It's
this
about keeping
guy,
a card safe. This is about
this guy here, okay? He's the evil white man that had the name on this woman who's pretending to be a man, had that name on the card, been a woman's name instead of a man's name. This evil white man here was going to attack her because he's a white supremacist and a bigot. But because True Name by Mastercard allows you to put whatever name you want, she was able to put a man's name, and he was tricked into thinking it really was a man. That's what this commercial is, just so you know. Ridiculous. Come on. And I'm sorry, but if you choose to pretend that you are some sex that you are not actually, and people laugh about that because they think you're delusional, freedom of speech, first of all. And sometimes it can be a bit comical the way some of these people portray themselves and act. And that's your own fault. That's your own fault. And I feel sorry for people who are that disillusioned, that have that kind of mental issue, that they can't distinguish that they are the sex that they are born as. However, I'm not going to I'm not going to harass them or attack them, but I'm not going to pretend for them either. The worst thing that you can do for somebody is to lie to them. And you don't lie to them to make them feel better. You tell them the truth to get them help. Anyway, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and I think it's so stupid. So, um, Josh Hawley has come out and he exposed foreign dark money, apparently, behind Joe Biden's misinformation report. So I don't know how he found this out, but Josh Hawley comes out and accused face not Josh Hawley. Joe Biden came out and accused Facebook of killing people, and Josh Hawley exposes him. So anyway, it says Joe Biden came out and accused Facebook of killing people. Then he took it back and said Facebook isn't killing people themselves, but the company is allowing 12 people to kill people spreading misinformation. These mythical 12 people are, according to some report, the president had allegedly just read. Now, we found the report came from a progressive activist group called, I, well, man, I hate when people cuss. Um, I crap you not. Insert S word. The Center for Countering Digital Hate, CCDH, finger quotes around the word hate. They're one of those dark money groups Democrats have a problem with when the dark money isn't being spent on them. I'm sure you can figure out where this is going, but let's let Senator Josh Hawley take us there anyway. Hint, I doubt yesterday's NPR hit piece against the Daily Wire was an accident. So Josh Hawley tweets out, for days now, the Biden's administration has said 12 people are guilty of spreading COVID-19 misinformation on social media. Who compiled this list for them? The Center for Countering Digital Hate, a foreign dark money group. And also, The Guardian has written about it as well. Um, he said this is the same dark money group that tried to have the conservative Federalist platform last year, and they've gone after other conservative sites as well, like Breitbart News. The organization is based in the United Kingdom, a country known for dislike of free speech. Just ask former royal and current eunuch Prince Harry. Set aside our pudding brained president telling the American people that his entire V word rhymes with Maxine. Operation missed its goals because of 12 random people on Facebook. 12 random people spreading misinformation were all it took to convince Americans not to get their Fauci ouchies. The Biden administration is so incompetent, by their own admission, they couldn't get the job done because of 12 people. On Thursday, Joe Biden's Surgeon General issued a report demanding big tech give harsher consequences to people spreading misinformation. So, first of all, the White House giving direction to Facebook or Twitter, whoever, telling them how to run their company and ordering them what they can and can't not allow on their platform, that is now illegal activity and it violates the First Amendment, free speech. That is not legal for the White House to decide what Facebook allows to stay on their platform and what they allow them to censor. It's not legal activity. And why more people aren't coming out against it, why more of the conservatives aren't fighting to get this taken care of and, get their, what is this? What is it? The C-230? I don't know. Whatever we've talked about it many times, but I can't think of it. They're, that allows them to not be held responsible for things that people say on the platform. Anyway, um, now they're being actually directed by the White House. It's not legal. On Friday, Joe Biden's press secretary says that if someone is banned from one platform for more information for misinformation, they should be banned from all platforms. See, this is tyranny right here. We are in exactly the spot where our Constitution gives us the right and tells us it's our duty to remove all the people from office, bring down the government, not not in a physical violent way, but to dismantle the government as it's running, pull them all out of office that are violating the Constitution, and rebuilding our government to the way that we see fit to govern us the way it was intended to be governing us in the first place. This is that point where you could start doing that. It would not be an insurrection. Nothing like that, because it would be a legal right of ours to reinstate a government that governs us the way we want to be governed, because it's supposed to be by us. Anyway, on Monday, Joe Biden cites a report claiming 12 people are responsible for two-thirds of the medical misinformation he wants stopped. Up to this point, there is still no mention of any specific misinformation he has an issue with. He just wants the big tech companies to look in the mirror and do something about it. Now today we find out the report of all of this is based on Now today we find out the report all of this is based on is from a leftist organization with a history of demanding conservative outlets get deplatformed. Hate and misinformation are nothing more than buzzwords used to describe any opinion they disagree with or any fact that gets in the way of their political agenda. Joe Biden or the people who have their arms shoved up his rectum and make him say things like a puppet wants Americans to get used to the idea of deplatforming people for wrong think or misinformation. He's using a public health crisis as an excuse to see how much he can get away with. After all, it's only 12 people and it's only to save people. Let's see what happens next. It's these 12 people now, then it will be people criticizing Biden's climate agenda, then it will be the concerned parents speaking out against schools indoctrinating their children. Then it will be anyone who questions Biden's economic agenda. Everything will be labeled misinformation. Everything will be considered hate. The people who have been warning us for the past 16 months. Hi, Courtney. This is what they've been warning us about. Okay. That's absolutely true. And they did. Um, what? They did try to. They wrote about the Daily Wire. Um, where did they talk? They talked about it somewhere. I guess this isn't it. They did come out with the Daily Wire, but um, they were calling it. They were saying that all that Ben Shapiro was doing was building an empire for himself and built on misinformation, I think is what it was. Um, but the Guardian, is this the Guardian? Yes. So the Guardian also wrote about it, and the CCDH, so it's a UK US nonprofit and non governmental organization, and it was founded in March. Um, that these 12 online personalities they dubbed the Disinformation Dozen have a combined following of 59 million people across multiple social media platforms, with Facebook having the largest impact. CCDH analyzed 812,000 Facebook posts and tweets and found 65% came from the Disinformation Dozen. Vivek Murthy, U.S. Surgeon General, and Joe Biden focused on misinformation around vaccines this week as a driving force of the virus spreading. On Facebook alone, the dozen are responsible for 73% of all anti vaccine content, though the vaccines have been deemed safe and effective by the U.S. government and its regulatory agencies, and 95% of the COVID misinformation reported on these platforms were not removed. Um, Among the dozen are physicians that have embraced pseudoscience, a bodybuilder, a wellness blogger, a religious zealot, and most notably Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nephew of John F. Kennedy, who has also linked vaccines to autism and 5G broadband cellular networks to the coronavirus pandemic. Kennedy was since removed from Instagram, which Facebook owns, but not from Facebook itself. Facebook, Google, and Twitter have put policies into place to prevent the spread of vaccine misinformation, yet to date, all have failed to satisfactorily enforce these policies. Um, so CCDH's CEO Imran Ahmad, of course, all have been particularly ineffective at removing harmful and dangerous misinformation about coronavirus vaccines. Although platforms have since taken measures to remove any post and even remove the 3 of the 12 from one platform, the CCDH is calling on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter and YouTube to completely deplatform the Disinformation Dozen they believe are dangerous and instrumental in creating vaccine hesitancy at a crucial moment in the pandemic. Updated policies and statements hold little value unless they are strongly and consistently enforced. With the vast majority of harmful content being spread by a select number of accounts, removing those few most dangerous individuals and groups can significantly reduce the amount of disinformation being spread across platforms. Let me just say, it is not these people that are causing vaccine hesitancy. It's the um, It's the fact that the government is pushing it so hard that they're bribing people. They're going door to door now in some states. Um, so that's some of the reason why people are hesitant, because they want to know if it's so safe and effective. Why do you have to bribe people to get it? And now you're going to come door to door to kind of force us into it, or at least convince us into it. And another thing is, a lot of people know that vaccines are not created in a 8 to 9 month period. That's not enough time to create and do the testing, animal testing, then the small human trials, then the expanded human trials. It's not nearly enough time. And now also, they are, since it's granted for emergency use only and not approved through the FDA, they cannot be sued for any adverse side effects or deaths that are caused by the vaccine. So those are your reasons why people have a hesitancy to get it. It's not because of people talking about it on Facebook and spreading misinformation, as they so call it, which it's not. These are opinions. It's not disinformation or anything like that. It's opinions. It's how people feel. You cannot tell people that their feelings are wrong. I hate it when people try to do that. So this is the report. Disinfo doesn't. So Anti-Vax Watch is an alliance of concerned individuals who are seeking to educate the American public about the dangers of the anti-vax industry. Um, it's a 40-page uh, summary. Uh, it gives you the names. So the 12 people are Joseph Mercola, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Ty and Charlene Bollinger, Sherry Tenpenny, Riza Islam, Rashid Battar, Erin Elizabeth, Sire Jai or Ji, Kelly Brogan, Chris, Christine Northrup, Ben Tapper, and Kevin Jenkins, whoever those people are. So, yeah, go check it out. You can go to the CCDH to look this up. So if you want to know what it has to say, just go look it up and find out. We'll be right back. There was a video that I wanted to show. Um, Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so this is the video that I wanted to show at the beginning. So I'm going to show it to you now. It's pretty funny.
These guys are an amazing group of men. It didn't look great there. At one point, we were 7-5, struggling a little bit, as the president alluded to. It's great to be, we're on the eve of football season. We start tomorrow practice, and we're going to do everything we can to work to achieve another one of those Lombardi trophies. It's a different group of men. It'll be a different challenge, but we're excited for it. We're excited for the opportunity to compete and work hard and show everyone what we're made of. So we're not going to throw the Super Bowl trophy this time, Cam, but we're going to offer President Biden a special presentation from Mr. Glazer, and then we're going to challenge 11 of us, 11 White House interns to a game of football here on the lawn, and we intend to run it up on you guys, so get ready to go. Thank you.
So I'm not sure exactly why they were at the White House. I don't know what caused them to go there, but it's kind of funny. He's kind of poking fun at Joe Biden. As you know, Tom Brady was a Trump supporter and friendly with Trump. People didn't like that, but you know, I just thought it was kind of funny video. Okay, this next story, it's a very sad story, and I heard it listening to Glenn Beck Radio, and it's it's really sad. So, um, this is from the New York Post. There are parents that are in the UK and they fight to save their daughter on life support after the court demands they pull the plug. So, an international tug of war has broken out over a desperately ill 2-year-old girl in England where an American dad is fighting British doctors who want to pull the plug on her life support. Now, keep that in mind. This is an American citizen. He's also an Israeli citizen, so he holds dual citizenship between America and Israel. Severely brain damaged at birth, little Alta Fixler has been on a ventilator her entire life, requires a feeding tube, and suffers from seizures. She cannot maintain a core body temperature or even blink, at times needing her eyes taped shut. Her doctors at Royal Manchester Children's Hospital believe Alta has no conscious awareness, and English courts have backed the medical experts' decision to let Alta die. But Alta's father, Abraham Fixler, who attended yeshiva in Brooklyn as a youth, continues to fight for her life. There is no reason to kill my daughter like this, he insisted to the Post. That's so sad. Hmm. The family's 11th hour has caught the bipartisan attention of powerful American polls. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is pushing to get the family to the United States. My heart breaks for the Fixler family, Schumer told the Post. There are doctors in the U.S. and Israel, where the family once lived, willing to treat Alta, said the desperate dad. There are a lot of places around the world where I can take care of my daughter, and they would be happy to take care of her long term, said Fixler, 28, who accused the British government of holding Alta and his family hostage. Let me go. That's all I'm saying, said Fixler, who is also father to an 8-year-old son. The doctors don't think she has quality of life, Fixler said, but I think she has quality of life. This is something very, very painful. The family has been fighting for Alta in British courts since 2019 and has faced a string of losses as the case slowly wound its way through the legal system. In May, a high court judge ruled that life support could be removed. On July 9th, the country's Court of Appeal affirmed the ruling, saying the decision was in Alta's best interest. So far, the British government has refused to allow Alta to leave. The issue is not one of red tape, but rather the wish of her current doctors not to see her life extended elsewhere, court papers show. See, this is ridiculous because this is someone who's an American citizen. They happen to be staying in England at the time, but they are American citizens. And there's hospitals here in America who want them to come to their hospital. They have some things that they want to try that they think could help her, but England is saying, nope, you can't go. We're not going to allow you to because we want to kill your child. Basically, that's not right. It's not right. So far, okay. It cannot be said to be in Alta's best interest to be transferred to Israel for life-sustaining treatment to continue, ruled High Court Justice Alistair MacDonald in his June decision. Letting their daughter die would violate the family's strongly held Hasidic Jewish beliefs. Our value of life is built into our religious upbringing. Orthodox Judaism encourages the continuation of life until all means are exhausted, family spokesperson Yossi Ges- Gesten, Gesteter, I don't know how to say that, sorry, told the Post. The family moved to England 5 years ago to be near Alta's grandparents. Alta was born prematurely in 2018 and initially showed no signs of life, forcing doctors to resuscitate her. Left critically deprived of oxygen with severe brain and nerve damage, physicians said the girl had no hope of recovery, court records show. But Fixler, who holds American and Israeli citizenship and is a legal resident of England, said he was encouraged by doctors abroad who said there may yet be superior treatment options not available to England's price conscious socialized healthcare system. The family is currently awaiting a hearing to determine if England's highest court will hear their case. No date for the hearing has been set. As the saga progressed, the case drew international attention and electrified the global Jewish community. The family's legal bills, in excess of $340,000 so far, have been paid through crowdfunding donations. Israel has offered to take Alta Fixler and continue her treatment there. The country's former president, Reuven Rivlin, has personally lobbied England's Prince Charles. Many organizations are trying to deal with Alta and to save her life and to prevent pulling the plug and killing that girl. Rabbi David Niederman, executive director of United Jewish Organizations of Williamsburg and North Brooklyn, told the Post. Schumer has taken the lead in the U.S., securing a visa and sending a letter to British ambassador to the U.S., Karen Pierce, demanding that no health decisions be taken against the family's wishes and that they be allowed to travel to the U.S. Her father is an American citizen, and we are going to keep fighting until she is allowed to come. Her life is at stake, and she is a beautiful 2-year-old little girl, Schumer said. New Jersey Senators Cory Booker and Robert Menendez followed up with a letter of their own to Pierce saying that their state's Phoenix Center for Rehabilitation and Pediatrics was ready and willing to take Alta. 10 Republican senators have also written to President Biden. We are profoundly troubled that the child of an American citizen is being treated this way in a country with whom we have a deep alliance and special relationship. They wrote, we urge you to advocate to Prime Minister Johnson on behalf of the Fixler family. The White House did not respond to repeated inquiries from the Post. Under UK law, the decision about Alta's welfare is one for the independent judiciary and not the British government. The courts are bound by law to make a decision on the basis of what is in Alta's best interest. Toby Usnick, a rep for the British Consulate General in New York, told the Post. So basically, they don't want to give her any opportunity to live a normal life. There are doctors who are claiming they have some treatment available that possibly could help her, but they're not going to know unless they get her to America and try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. But the fact that these doctors in England are saying her life is of no value. Well, if her life is of no value, she wouldn't be here. God allowed her to be born. These things took place, and for whatever reason, God is allowing this to happen to her. But she's still alive. And the thing is, if they pull that plug and God doesn't want her to die, she's not going to die. I think it would be wonderful if the court decided, yep, nope, you're not going. We're pulling the plug. I think it'd be a wonderful thing that they go in there and they pull that plug and that child stays alive long enough for them to fly and get to America and get her back into a hospital. I think that'd be great. Or some miraculous thing, she just ended up, after the plug was pulled, just being okay and starting to live a normal life. It can happen. Miracles are real, and that would be a wonderful thing. I feel really, really bad for these parents. This is why you don't go live in other countries. Visit, sure. Don't go live in other countries because once you're there, for whatever reason, you're stuck and you're going to have, especially, they have control of their child's life. It's their kid, but England has control and they're not relinquishing it and they're going to kill their child. So you best just stay put in America. You don't want stuff like that happening. Okay. There's a Minnesota representative that was just recently pulled over. I think it's because he didn't have a front license plate on his car. And yeah, and he claimed he was racially profiled. And then they released the body cam footage, and of course he was not. So there's a lot more to this story. That's why I want to first start here if you haven't heard about it. So victimhood has become currency in our society, and there's nothing healthy or normal about it. One example of that came recently via a Minnesota politician named John Thompson. Now, if you don't know who John Thompson is, um, I can very easily show you who John Thompson is. And the thing is, I had seen this video go viral, and uh, the fact that he was elected to represent Minnesota is so crazy to me. So this is the video that went viral.
PFL candidate for the state house. It was outside of the.
Oh, come on.
Come on over here with your Blue Lives Matter sign. Blue Lives ain't and if people in Hugo don't support black people, Hugo, Minnesota.
John Thompson wore a Bob Kroll Must Go t-shirt as he represent district.
Yeah.
Minnesota Democrats and Facebook. Thompson apologized, saying, quote, I want to make not helpful.
Anyway, so that was a video that went viral of him yelling. There was a house. So there was a house that was they had a flag or a sign that said Blue Lives Matter. He didn't like it. There were kids out in the front yard. I think in the video you can see it's mostly all women standing out there. And he's talking about how he's, oppressed and he's being terrorized by the sign. And then he ends up being a representative, being elected. It's so strange. Um, the state representative caused waves by claiming that he had been racially profiled by the police. He shared a sob story at a social justice event after being pulled over, saying that an officer had targeted him for driving while black. In reality, he didn't have a front license plate, which is required in Minnesota. Not only that, Thompson was driving on a suspended Wisconsin driver's license. The reason it was suspended? Because he had failed to pay child support. Not only is this guy a liar, but he also moonlights as a deadbeat, apparently. Now, the body cam footage has been released, and it shows that Thompson's account of a racist officer targeting him is simply false. This per Fox News. Thompson then asks in the video why he was pulled over, which the officer said was due to his car having no front plate and the way you took off from the light back there. I'm too old to run from the police, man, Thompson says. You profiled me because you looked me dead in the face and I got a ticket for driving while black. You pulled me over because you saw a black face in the car, brother. There's no way in hell I'm taking off with you behind me. You looked in this car and busted a U-turn and got behind my car, and that's the reason. The officer then tells the state representative that the interaction is being recorded on a body cam. I know, but what I'm saying is what you're doing is wrong to black men, he says, and you need to stop that. Thank you so much, but this ticket means nothing to me. What I'm saying to you is stop racially profiling black men in their cars, sir. Stop doing that. The officer argues he was not racially profiling him and eventually tells Thompson to have a good night and walks away. It was 1:20 a.m. when the traffic stop occurred. The idea that the officer could have even seen this guy was black prior to pulling him over through his obviously tinted windows is a stretch. Regardless, nothing in the video shows that he was profiled or bullied in any way. In fact, the officer seemed rather lenient, allowing him to drive off on a suspended license. Yeah, that's that doesn't typically happen. Thompson tried to flaunt his privilege by letting it be known he was a state representative, but that hardly is a free pass to get out of a ticket. His accusations are backed up by no part of the video. The police chief in St. Paul demanded an apology, noting that this is not the kind of thing anyone should be lying about. These aren't accusations I take lightly, so I looked into the traffic stop, watched the body-worn camera footage, and spoke to the sergeant. This stop, made at about 1:20 in the morning, had absolutely nothing to do with the driver's race. Simply put, the traffic stop was by the books. What happened afterwards was anything but. I'm dismayed and disappointed by the state representative's response to the stop. Rather than taking responsibility for his own decisions and actions, he attempted to deflect, cast aspersions, and deny any wrongdoing. This is Axtell. This is from Axtell wrote this on Facebook post. Of note is that I'm considered white as far as I know, and I've been pulled over for not having a front license plate. It wasn't in Minnesota, but rather in Texas. People get pulled over for this kind of stuff all the time, especially after midnight when the police already have their guard up. Lying about racism is dangerous. It causes divisions, but it also puts officers in a position to be targeted in the future. Thompson should be ashamed of himself. You'll be less than shocked to learn he's not, though. In fact, he's already doubled down. He did post a message on Facebook Sunday reading, I know why I have a target on my back, but just know slander won't work either. I'm not going to stop applying pressure. How do people like this get elected to public office? And Thompson is also under scrutiny for possibly not even living in his district, which would explain why he has a Wisconsin license. The voting dynamics in these inner city areas are just mind numbing at times. I'm not expecting a Republican to be elected in St. Paul, but is this really the best that the city has to offer? Now, then bringing up the fact that they don't even know if he lives in his district. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing against that in the Constitution that says if you represent a district, you have to live in that district, or if you represent, or even in that county. The only requirement is that you must live in the same state. And there are questions of whether or not uh, Thompson actually lives in the state of Minnesota. So, this was updated on July 13th, okay? So we know that he's under fire for using a Wisconsin driver's license despite holding office and voting in Minnesota. This was a fact revealed after he was involved in a St. Paul traffic stop. So, Thompson, who was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2020, representing District 67A on the east side of St. Paul, before getting elected, he was a community activist and worked as is that a machinist? Is that how you say that? His election followed his public activism in the aftermath of Philando Castile's shooting death during a police traffic stop. Thompson and Castile were friends, and he vowed to seek change in law enforcement policies as a result. During the 2020 campaign, Thompson participated in a protest outside the Hugo home of Bob Kroll, then president of the Minneapolis Police Union. Thompson was recorded striking effigies of Kroll and his wife and talking about burning Hugo down. He later apologized for the inflammatory rhetoric, stayed in the race, and was elected in his heavily DFL district. But Republicans used the incident against other Democrats on the ballot given their association with and endorsement of him. In office, Thompson has been an outspoken advocate for changing policing rules and recently lambasted Governor Tim Walz, a fellow Democrat, for not showing some testicular fortitude in negotiations with Republicans on the issue. So, why is Thompson in the news now? So, on July 4th, St. Paul police pulled him over. We're not going to do that. He said he was racially profiled. We know that it wasn't. So, more recently, the spotlight on Thompson spurred reporters to look more deeply into Thompson's past, and Fox 9's Tom Lydon reported that Thompson had been accused of domestic violence in the past. Thompson denied that any of the inflammatory allegations ever occurred. Now, Thompson is a registered Minnesota voter with a listed residence on New York Avenue in his St. Paul district. However, he has maintained a Wisconsin license for years, renewing it in 2005, 2012, and 2020. Wisconsin licenses are only issued to Wisconsin residents. Thompson listed a Wisconsin address as his place of residence when renewing it. Thompson has never had a Minnesota license. That's sus, if you ask me. He has voted in Minnesota in multiple elections dating back to 2004. A spokesperson for the Wisconsin Elections Commission said no one with Thompson's name and birth date has been a registered Wisconsin voter since at least 2006, when the state's current database launched. In statements before and after the recent incident, Thomas has repeatedly identified himself as a longtime resident of St. Paul. Yet you don't have a Minnesota driver's license, and the only license you have is Wisconsin, which you have to live in that state to get it. That's suspicious. Okay. There are no known active criminal investigations or civil litigation underway in Thompson's residency, though his critics have called for investigations. It's possible that Thompson violated either Minnesota state law by falsely claiming to be a Minnesota resident in his candidate declaration, or violated Wisconsin law by falsely claiming to be a Wisconsin resident in his license application. Both forms require people to certify that the information is accurate on penalty of perjury. Minnesota law requires new residents get a Minnesota license within 60 days. So if he lived in Wisconsin and then he moved to Minnesota, and you have 60 days to get a Minnesota driver's license if you're living there as a resident, and he never did that, there should be obviously legal repercussions for this. Or he's lying about living in Wisconsin and he actually lives in Minnesota and for whatever reason doesn't want to get a license in Minnesota. That seems least likely, that you actually live there but you go and get a driver's license in another state. It seems more likely that he actually lives in Wisconsin and lied about living in Minnesota. Thompson represents a safely held Democratic district. His biggest risk is that members of his party abandon him or join in calls for him to be ushered out. On July 17th, that happened with Governor Tim Walz, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, House Speaker Melissa Hortman, House Majority Leader Ryan Winkler, and DFL Party Chair Ken Martin, issuing coordinated statements calling on Thompson to resign in the wake of the reported domestic violence allegations. Thompson denied the charges and said he has no intention of resigning. If Thompson doesn't resign, he could face ethics charges. All 201 seats in the legislature will be on the ballot again in 2022. Thompson hasn't said if he will seek another term, but he would be the odds-on favorite if he does. So, in a statement, Thompson said he had kept his Wisconsin license after moving to Minnesota. I live and work in St. Paul and have for many years. My Wisconsin license hadn't previously been an issue for me, but I will now be changing it to a Minnesota license as I should have before. He also criticized the officer's decision to pull him over for missing a front license plate, only to then ticket him for an unrelated matter that came up during the stop, a so-called pretextual stop that Thompson and other legislative Democrats tried unsuccessfully to ban this year. In the video, you won't see the officer do anything that isn't by the book, but the issue is we need to rewrite the book. I do not know the officer who pulled me over, and I have no reason to believe that they have any hate towards me specifically. Officers do, however, work in a system that has allowed these too often pretextual traffic stops to continue despite tragic consequences. So Thompson isn't the first lawmaker or candidate for office to face scrutiny over his residency. In 2005, Republican legislative candidate Sue Eck was removed from the ballot after she couldn't prove she lived in St. Cloud, Minnesota, a district long enough ahead of a special election. The state Supreme Court upheld a referee's finding that Eck was more tied to a St. Paul district than one in St. Cloud within the 6 month lead up to the election. About a decade later, the High Court struck incumbent Republican Representative Bob Barrett from the re-election ballot after he was determined to live outside his district's boundaries. Well, I could they're talking about not living in the district but running in the district, and I could not find anything that said that you have to live in the district that you're running for. I didn't find that. So I'm going to look into it a little bit more and see if I can find something, but the Constitution only says that you have to live in the state. Um so what I wanted to talk about, and I thought this was actually going to talk about it, is the fact that he was accused of some domestic violence charges, and they're pretty horrendous, and they're pretty bad. So I wanted to look at those. Um, well, maybe it was on this one. I do know that, like he said, Governor Tim Walz called for his resignation. Um, He said, I think it would be very unusual for three different police departments stretching over a decade to fabricate information, the governor said at an education event in Lake Elmo. He continued to call for Thompson's resignation. Multiple accusations, causes of domestic violence in the presence of children just makes it so that I do not believe the representative can continue to serve us well. Among the police and court records, an Eagan police incident report from 2006 highlights a female victim claiming Thompson put both his hands around her neck and started choking her and told her, I'll choke you until you can't breathe anymore. Court records from Washington County indicate in another case from 2006, Thompson assaulted petitioner in presence of her child by striking her in the throat and told her, I'll kill you. In a 2011 case in St. Paul, a police incident report recounts an alleged assault on a 15-year-old daughter of his girlfriend. According to the report, Thompson grabbed a girlfriend's daughter, pushed her, attempted to choke her. Through his attorney, Thompson denies all the allegations, points out he's never been convicted of domestic assault, and questions the authenticity of the police and court records. Although Thompson remains silent, his wife posted on Facebook over the weekend, "My husband is under attack. She goes on to say, I am in fierce protect my king, my pack mode. Please understand that respectfully, we are not resigning." If he doesn't resign, House Republican Minority Leader Kurt Doubt Crown says his caucus is preparing multiple ethics complaints, including a focus on whether he lied about his residency on his affidavit of candidacy to run for office and whether he violated Wisconsin law by repeatedly renewing his Wisconsin driver's license for 18 years. We not only have to look at Minnesota law, we have to look at Wisconsin law and see what it means when he signed that application for renewal of that driver's license. Dot told 5 Eyewitness News on Monday. Was he stating he was a Wisconsin resident under penalty of perjury? And it does look like he was doing that. He either lied to them or he was not a Minnesota resident and was not eligible to serve in the legislature. Doubt says that it may take some time to file the ethics complaints because they have to provide all the evidence and documentation at one time and cannot amend the complaint once it's filed, according to the House rules. Ultimately, if a complaint is forwarded to the House floor by the Ethics Committee, Dodd says it would take a two-thirds majority to expel Thompson from the legislature. So, I know he's claiming, like the authenticity of the court records and the documents, but somehow I just don't doubt that these are real. And of course, you're going to make me register. I wanted to look more into what the actual charges were because there was so much more than just those few things. There was many, many more. Okay, so in 2003, Mr. Thompson said, so he said that he was never convicted. But in 2003, he pled guilty to a reduced charge of disorderly conduct after allegedly striking his girlfriend in the face in front of her daughter and resisting arrest in Superior, Wisconsin, according to Fox 9. He has the episode, so his arrest or his traffic stop drew attention to his ongoing trial on a 2019 obstruction charge, as well as his rap sheet, which includes 20 traffic citations in Minnesota from 2010 to 2021 and 4 domestic violence cases from 2003 to 2011 that resulted in 3 disorderly conduct convictions. So he's in an ongoing trial as of right now for obstruction charge in 2019. Perfect. 2004, he again pled guilty to disorderly conduct in a deal that resulted in the dismissal of charges of making terrorist threats, interfering with a 911 call, and domestic assault in Eagan, Minnesota. He pled guilty to disorderly conduct again in 2007 after being charged in 2006 with domestic assault in Woodbury, Minnesota for allegedly striking his girlfriend in the throat in front of her child, spitting on her parked car, and telling her, "I'll kill you." In 2011, he was charged with domestic assault in St. Paul after allegedly grabbing his girlfriend's daughter, pushing her, and attempting to choke her, but the charge was dismissed. In 2009 and 2010, St. Paul police responded to domestic incidents in which 2 different women accused Mr. Thompson of exposing himself in front of children during arguments, but he was not charged. So he also whipped out his private parts in front of these 2 women's children. During that 2009 incident, according to the reports, as the yelling escalated, Thompson pulled out his penis in front of his girlfriend and 2 young children and then said, "I'm the man, you can all, you know," telling the children to perform that act because he's the man. That to me is indecent exposure of to a child. That's child abuse. That's sexual assault on a child. Why this man is not in jail? I'm baffled. Thompson denied he ever exposed himself. The Ramsey County attorney declined to file charges. Mr. Thompson's attorney, Jordan Kushner, told Fox 9, "Mr. Thompson does deny the allegations. The end result speaks for themselves." Alongside his lack of transparency regarding his residency, Representative Thompson has been involved in 4 domestic assault cases. His constituents and our legislature deserve better. The Minnesota Republican Party statement said that his actions are inexcusable and his constituents deserve full representation at the Minnesota House of Representatives. In light of recent reporting showing an incredibly disturbing pattern of domestic violence and abuse from Representative John Thompson, we are calling on Thompson to resign from office immediately. The lawmaker who introduced a bill this year to end qualified immunity for police is currently on trial in Hennepin County Court for a 2019 misdemeanor obstruction charge stemming from a brahaha. What? A bra. Okay, I think that's misspelled. At North Memorial Hospital in Robbinsdale. Mr. Thompson accused staff of behaving rudely based on racism after he and dozens of others arrived to visit his son's friend, during which a fight broke out and the hospital was placed on lockdown for 90 minutes. My client's going to court because he's innocent of the charge. Worse than that, he's being persecuted because he's outspoken where he sees racism, and that's why he's being prosecuted in this case. Especially because he accused the police and the hospital security and hospital staff of treating black people differently and in a racist manner. Mr. Thompson, who renewed his Wisconsin driver's license most recently in November, said in a Monday statement that "I live and work in St. Paul" and that he would obtain a Minnesota license. So I don't know all what happened at the hospital with the representative. But the fact that uh, he just does whatever the heck he wants, clearly. Um, I don't know why people are allowed to get away with this kind of stuff. Um, I'm just not sure. But I would like to know more about what happened at the hospital. So, let's see. Um, he was charged in Hennepin County Court with trespassing and obstructing police during a disturbance involving dozens of people near the emergency room entrance. Thompson pled not guilty and says he was only there to check on the condition of a close friend who attempted suicide. He claims hospital officials and police overreacted to the situation where people were distraught about their friend. We were met with total insensitivity and a lack of humanity. This is the African American experience. This is how we're treated. Baloney. Get over it. Prosecutors say Thompson was verbally abusive and interfering with police trying to quell the disturbance. So, that doesn't really talk about the whole thing. So apparently some kind of disturbance broke out and he got himself involved for whatever reason and he was charged. So there you go. This is the kind of people that Democrats elect into office. They're dumb. They're dumb. This is who you think represents Minnesota? Well, I guess so, because George Floyd is Minnesota's hero. So, yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that aligns pretty well. I don't get it, but sure. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. Please join me on my Facebook, Lauren Collins. I just gotta say something. Email me, gotta say something 21 at gmail.com. Join my subreddit community at r/just gotta say something. If you just want to listen to the podcast, you can find me on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, all of the platforms that you like. Just find your favorite one. Leave me a review, rate the show if you want to, and also subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like this video, share the video. I would really appreciate it. You can leave me a comment and I will answer back. And also, subscribe to the channel, please, and hit the notification bell so you can see every time that I upload a new video. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Don't forget, go check out the Scott Ford Show and subscribe there. Isaac Hayes at the Cajun Conservative and his Christian podcast, Brothers Just Searching. And The Armed Lutheran is a good one. That's a new one that I found. And also, TV Rob is Unwoke. TV Rob. I forgot it. TV's Rob is Unwoke. That's what it is. Check that one out. And also on this Saturday, if you're not subscribed to the Scott Ford Show, you need to go check it out on Saturday. That will be when the interview that he had me on his show and interviewed me, and we had a good conversation. That will go up on Saturday. So please check it out. I would really appreciate that. And be back here tomorrow because I have something very, very interesting to talk about tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. God bless.